Her parents sold her because of infertility until the Alpha King chose her. The desperation of a family and the cruel traditions of their world collided to create a fate no one could have predicted. What happens when the most powerful man in the kingdom sets his sights on the girl everyone had discarded? Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The autumn sun cast long shadows across the thatched roof of the Silva family's cottage as Anna watched the tax collector's carriage approach from her window. At 32, Anna Silva had learned to make herself small, to blend into the rough stone walls of their modest home on the outskirts of Vila das Pedras. Her fingers trembled as she set aside the half-finished embroidery, stories in thread, since her father would never waste precious coins on books for a daughter who had failed at the one thing women were valued for. "He's here," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. The cottage fell silent, except for the crackling fire and her sister's nervous breathing. Pedro Silva, a man weathered by years of hard labor and disappointment, gathered 11-year-old Luisa into his protective embrace. The child's wolf spirit was strong. Everyone in the village said so, making her infinitely more valuable than her barren older sister. Anna watched her father's knuckles whiten as he clutched Luisa closer, his eyes never once seeking out his eldest daughter. When the knock came, it shook the wooden door with authority. Anna shrank further into the shadows as the Beta de Rey stepped inside, having to duck his towering frame beneath the low doorway. His golden eyes scanned the humble dwelling with undisguised contempt, lingering hungrily on Luisa's small form. "The taxes have doubled this season," the Beta announced, his voice carrying the weight of royal decree. "King's orders." Pedro's face drained of color. "Doubled? But the harvest was poor, and the winter will be—" "Your concerns are not the king's concerns," the Beta interrupted, removing a scroll from his coat. "You have until the full moon to pay. Otherwise—" His gaze shifted deliberately toward Luisa, whose wolf spirit would make her valuable to the royal bloodline. "The king will take what he pleases, starting with the girl." Anna felt her stomach twist into knots. Since childhood, she had taken refuge in fairy tales, spinning fantasies where barren women were blessed by forest spirits, where empty wombs suddenly flourished with life. For 5 childless years with her mate before being cast back to her father's home, she had clung to these stories, hoping that someday her worth might be restored. But as the Beta's golden eyes calculated the value of her sister, Anna knew fairy tales were just that, tales. In this kingdom, a woman's worth was measured by her ability to bear children, to continue bloodlines. And by that measure, Anna had already been judged and found wanting. The Beta stepped closer to Luisa, and Pedro's arms tightened protectively around his youngest daughter. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the shutters like a warning of the storm to come. Pedro Silva fell to his knees, his weathered hands clasped in desperate supplication. "Please, we need more time," he begged, his voice cracking with fear. But the Beta de Rey's predatory gaze had already fixed on Luisa, who cowered behind her father. The towering enforcer's golden eyes gleamed with appreciation for the child's potential. "This one has a strong wolf spirit," the Beta remarked, inhaling deeply. "She would produce many fine heirs for worthy families. The king might be interested in securing her bloodline." Pedro's face drained of color. His eyes darted frantically around the cottage until they landed on the shadowy corner where Anna stood, forgotten as always. A terrible calculation crossed his features. "Take my older daughter instead," Pedro blurted, pointing toward Anna. His voice trembled as he continued. "She's already of age. Anna is... She's useless for breeding, but she could serve in other ways." Anna felt each word like a physical blow. The cottage walls seemed to close in around her as her father bargained her away. She had known her worth was diminished in his eyes, but to hear him speak it so plainly before strangers shattered something fundamental inside her. The Beta turned, noticing Anna fully for the first time. His lip curled in disdain as he assessed her. "Wolfless?" he questioned. Pedro nodded miserably. 5 years married and not a single child. Her mate returned her last spring. Anna's cheeks burned with shame. Every villager in Vila das Pedras knew her story. The barren daughter, the failed wife, returned to her father's house like damaged goods. She had tried to make herself useful, to fade into the background, but now her father's desperate gambit had thrust her into this terrible spotlight. "What use would the king have for such a one?" the beta scoffed, turning back toward Luisa. "She tells stories," Luisa cried out, her young voice high with fear for both herself and her sister. "Beautiful stories about wolves and kings and magic. Everyone says so." The beta paused, his expression shifting slightly. He studied Anna with renewed interest, as if recalculating her value. "Stories, is it?" he mused. "The king does have certain guests who might appreciate entertainment." In that moment, Anna understood her fate with perfect clarity. She wasn't being traded for her life or her body, but for her words, the only part of herself she had ever truly valued. The irony was almost too much to bear. "Pack nothing," the beta commanded, gesturing for Anna to come forward. "You belong to the king now." Anna stepped out of the shadows, her spine straightening as she moved past her father without meeting his eyes. She would not give him the satisfaction of seeing her tears. The rickety wooden cart jostled Ana Silva with every bump in the dirt road, each mile taking her further from everything she had ever known. She refused to look back at Vila das Pedras as it disappeared behind the rolling hills. What was there to see? A father who had traded her like damaged goods. A sister whose future was now secured by Anna's sacrifice. The shame that had clung to her since her husband had returned her to her father's home, barren and wolfless, now felt like the only possession she truly owned. The beta's men barely acknowledged her existence during the journey, speaking around her as if she were merely cargo. Anna wrapped her thin shawl tighter around her shoulders as the afternoon sun began to sink behind the mountains. She tried desperately to recall the fairy tales that had once given her comfort, stories of princesses rescued from towers, of beasts transformed by love, of happy endings that seemed cruelly impossible now. "We'll make camp here," the beta announced, his golden eyes glinting in the fading light. "The king's castle is still a day's journey away." That night, Anna was given a small portion of hard bread and placed in a makeshift cell, really just a cage on wheels. The other girls collected for the castle huddled together for warmth, but they kept their distance from Anna. Even among the rejected, she was somehow lesser. As darkness enveloped the camp, Anna closed her eyes and began to weave a story in her mind. In this tale, Pedro Silva realized his terrible mistake. He gathered the village men, mounting a rescue. In her imagination, her father wept as he embraced her, begging forgiveness. Luisa stood proudly beside them, declaring that family protected its own, no matter what. A bitter smile crossed Anna's lips. Stories had always been her refuge, but they were poor comfort now. She had seen the relief in her father's eyes when the beta accepted his offer. No rescue would come. No one would fight for a woman whose womb remained empty after 5 years of marriage, whose body lacked the wolf spirit that defined their people's strength. Morning came too quickly. As the caravan prepared to continue its journey, Anna caught her first glimpse of marble towers in the distance, gleaming white against the blue sky. The king's castle, the seat of Rey Rafael Costa, the alpha whose power was said to... And what stories could possibly save her now? The first rays of dawn painted the horizon as Ana Silva caught her first glimpse of the royal castle. Marble towers gleamed like polished bone against the misty fields, their imposing silhouettes both beautiful and terrifying. She stumbled slightly on the uneven path, her legs aching from the long journey that had torn her from everything familiar. Beside her, 5 other girls, all young, all trembling, huddled together for comfort. None spoke. What words could possibly matter now? The Beta du Rey rolled his massive shoulders, bones cracking as he shifted from wolf to human form. His nakedness seemed a deliberate display of power as he casually dressed himself, golden eyes never leaving his captives. "Move," he barked, shoving the nearest girl forward. The king's servants don't appreciate tardiness. They were herded through a narrow servants' entrance, descending worn stone steps into the bowels of the castle. The air grew colder, damper, carrying the scent of old stone and fear. Torches cast long shadows across walls that seemed to press inward, swallowing them deeper into the fortress. In a stark chamber lined with wooden benches, they met Donna Clara. The head servant stood rigid as iron, her gray hair pulled severely back. Wolf-amber eyes assessing each girl with cold calculation. Her gaze lingered longest on Anna, as if sensing something different, something defective. "Strip," she commanded, voice leaving no room for hesitation. "Everything you owned in your previous lives belongs to His Majesty now." The other girls began removing their garments immediately, some weeping silently. Anna's fingers trembled as she untied her threadbare dress, the last connection to her former life. She folded each piece methodically, a small act of dignity when dignity was all she had left. "Faster," Donna Clara snapped, striking the wooden bench with a thin rod. "Your property now, not guests." Anna stood naked, fighting the urge to cover herself. The stone floor chilled her bare feet as servants appeared with buckets and rough cloths. One girl sobbed openly when cold water splashed against her skin. "The king's household demands cleanliness," the head servant explained, watching impassively as they were scrubbed raw. "Though I doubt any of you will last a month here." Anna bit her lip against the pain as coarse soap burned her skin. She noticed the Beta lingering by the doorway, his hungry gaze sweeping over the girls' bodies before he turned and disappeared down the corridor. When they were deemed sufficiently clean, each received a plain shift of undyed linen, identical in their shapelessness, erasing any last trace of individuality. "Remember," Donna Clara instructed, circling them like a predator. "You obey without question. You speak only when spoken to. You never enter the West Wing. And above all," her eyes narrowed to amber slits, "you never ever question the king's orders." The freezing water hit Ana Silva like a slap, stealing her breath as the servants scrubbed every inch of her body with brutal efficiency. Their calloused hands worked the harsh soap into her skin until it burned red. She bit her lip to keep from crying out, determined not to give them the satisfaction of hearing her pain. "Scrub harder," commanded Donna Clara from the corner of the bathing chamber, her wolf-amber eyes gleaming with malice. The head servant's iron-gray hair was pulled back in a severe bun that matched her disposition. "The king's guest has particular standards." One of the younger servants whispered an apology as she yanked a wooden comb through Anna's tangled hair, ripping out knots without mercy. Around her, the other 5 girls whimpered and shivered, their dignity stripped away along with the dirt of their journey. "None of you will last a month," Donna Clara announced, pacing the stone floor. The last batch barely survived 2 weeks before they were sent to the kitchens, or worse. Her thin lips curved into something resembling a smile. "Especially you, wolfless one." After the humiliating bath, the girls were dressed in identical gray shifts that hung loosely from their shoulders. The rough fabric scratched against Anna's raw skin as they were marched through winding corridors. Servants scurried past, averting their eyes, while guards stood at attention, their expressions carefully blank. In a sparse chamber with only wooden benches, Donna Clara delivered their instructions with cold precision. "The rules are simple, even for simple minds. You obey without question. You speak only when spoken to. You never enter the West Wing or the king's private chambers. You never look the king or his nobles directly in the eyes. Anna memorized each rule, noting which corridors to avoid, which nobles demanded special treatment. Her mind cataloged escape routes and hiding places, though she knew escape was impossible. The castle was a labyrinth of stone and secrets, and beyond its walls, her family had made it clear she had no home to return to. As night fell, the girls were gathered in an antechamber, waiting to be presented to the king's special guest. Whispers circulated among them, tales of monsters that devoured maidens, of beasts that required blood sacrifices. Anna's stomach twisted with dread, but her face remained impassive. She had survived her father's betrayal and the beta's sneering assessment. She had endured the journey to this cold castle and the brutal cleansing ritual. Whatever monster awaited her beyond those doors, she would face it with the only weapon she had left, her stories. Donna Clara returned, her gaze sweeping over them critically. "It's time," she announced. "Remember, your lives depend on pleasing the king's guest." Anna stood rigid in line with the other girls, her bare feet chilled against the polished marble floor. The servants had arranged them like prized livestock, shoulders back, chins down, eyes fixed on the intricate patterns beneath their toes. She could feel the tension radiating from the girls beside her. 5 strangers bound by the same fate, their breathing shallow with fear. Donna Clara circled them like a predator, her iron gray hair pulled back so severely it seemed to stretch her skin. When footsteps echoed from the grand corridor, the head servant's hand pressed firmly on Anna's neck, forcing her head lower. "Stand properly," she hissed. "His Majesty approaches." The footsteps grew louder, unhurried, measured, powerful. Anna didn't need to look up to feel the shift in the room's energy. The air itself seemed to grow heavier, charged with an authority that pressed against her skin like a physical weight. Even the guards straightened, their armor clinking softly as they snapped to attention. "Your Majesty," Donna Clara's voice transformed, honeyed with deference. "The new selections for your special guest, as requested." Anna could see only polished boots at first, then the hem of rich fabric as Rey Rafael Costa moved slowly down the line. The silence stretched painfully as he inspected each girl. When he reached Anna, the boots paused. "How tiresome," the king murmured, his voice deep and resonant, yet tinged with something that sounded almost like weariness. "Every month the same ritual. Does he never tire of these offerings?" The beta stepped forward. "The arrangement continues as agreed, Majesty. Which will you select this time?" Something in the king's tone, that hint of exhaustion, of disappointment, made Anna do what she'd been expressly forbidden to do. She lifted her gaze, just slightly, just enough to glimpse the man who held her fate. The breath caught in her throat. Rafael Costa was beautiful in a way that transcended humanity. Tall and powerful, with features that seemed carved from marble by a master's hand. But it was his eyes that truly captured her, ancient, feral, burning with an intelligence that seemed to see through flesh to soul. Those eyes weren't merely amber like the betas. They contained entire worlds, entire histories. Those impossible eyes locked with hers, and Anna couldn't look away. The king's expression shifted subtly, surprise, then curiosity, then something unreadable passing across his face. "This one," he said quietly, never breaking their gaze. "She serves." Anna felt the other girl's relief like a physical wave, relief that wasn't hers to share. Whatever fate awaited her, she had been chosen. The king turned away, his decision made, leaving Anna trembling with the certainty that she had just crossed some invisible threshold from which there would be no return. Anna knew without raising her gaze. Something in the air shifted when Rey Rafael Costa's eyes landed on her. The heavy silence that followed confirmed what her racing heart already sensed. She had been chosen. "Have you made your selection, Majestat?" The attendant's voice broke through the tension, formal and practiced. The king's response was dismissive, almost bored. "Ella serve, she will do." 3 simple words that sealed Anna's fate more permanently than any official decree. The other girls were quickly ushered away, their relief palpable as they disappeared down the corridor. Anna remained frozen, her bare feet cold against the polished stone floor. Donna Clara's fingers dug into her arm as she pulled Anna away from the king's presence. The head servant's amber eyes betrayed nothing, but her grip spoke volumes about what was to come. Anna was led through a maze of hallways, each more ornate than the last. Tapestries depicting wolf hunts and ancient battles lined the walls, silent witnesses to countless girls who had walked this path before her. Guards stood at attention, their expressions carefully blank, though Anna noticed how they avoided looking directly at her. Finally, they stopped before a massive oak door, its surface carved with intricate patterns that seemed to shift in the flickering torchlight. 2 guards flanked the entrance, their postures rigid, hands resting on the hilts of their swords. Donna Clara leaned close, her iron-gray hair brushing against Anna's cheek. "Listen carefully, girl," she whispered, her breath hot against Anna's ear. "Please the king's guest, or tomorrow you'll face something worse." The threat hung in the air between them, unspecified yet terrifying in its vagueness. Anna noticed the guards shifting uncomfortably, their faces glistening with sweat, despite the evening chill that permeated the stone walls. One of them swallowed hard, his eyes darting nervously to the door and back. Whatever or whoever waited beyond that threshold inspired fear even in armed men. "Remember your place," Donna Clara added, straightening Anna's simple shift with rough hands. "You are here to serve, nothing more." Anna's throat felt dry, her tongue heavy with unasked questions. What kind of guest inspired such dread? Why had the king chosen her, the wolfless one, when the others possessed what this kingdom valued most? The door creaked open, revealing only darkness beyond. Donna Clara gave Anna a final push forward, her voice dropping to a barely audible murmur. "If you survive the night, perhaps you'll earn a place here." Flickering candlelight cast long shadows across marble floors and heavy tapestries depicting ancient hunts. A banquet table stretched along one wall, laden with fruits, meats, and gleaming silver goblets. A feast prepared for royalty, not a servant girl from Villa das Pedras. The hair on her arms rose as an unmistakable sensation crept over her. Someone, or something, was watching from the darkness. Anna forced herself to breathe, scanning the room's shadowed corners where the candlelight couldn't reach. "Hello?" she whispered, her voice barely audible even to her own ears. No answer came, but the weight of unseen eyes pressed heavier upon her. Anna took tentative steps toward the enormous 4-poster bed dominating the center of the room. Atop the silken covers lay a package wrapped in delicate paper, her name written in an elegant, almost inhuman script. With trembling fingers, she unwrapped it, revealing fabric that seemed to capture the night sky itself. A gown of midnight blue, so deep it appeared black in the dim light, intricately threaded with gold that caught the candlelight like distant stars. Beside it lay a collar of diamonds, each stone larger than any treasure she had ever seen in her humble village. "Put it on." The voice emerged from the darkest corner of the room, deep, resonant, and distinctly inhuman. It carried an undercurrent of pain beneath its monstrous timbre. Anna clutched the gown to her chest, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Where are you?" "Put it on." Each word landed like stone, leaving no room for refusal. She retreated behind a carved wooden screen, slipping the servant's shift from her shoulders. The midnight fabric slid cool and weightless across her skin. As she pulled the gown over her head, its perfect fit unnerving her. How had they known her measurements so precisely? The diamond collar felt impossibly heavy, as she fastened it around her neck. It wasn't merely jewelry. It was a claim, a mark of ownership. When Anna emerged from behind the screen, the chamber appeared empty still, yet the presence had drawn closer. She could feel it circling, assessing her. "Turn," commanded the voice. Despite her terror, Anna found herself standing straighter. If this was to be her end, she would face it with dignity. The memory of her father's callous betrayal flashed in her mind. Useless for breeding, he had called her. If she was to die here, at least it would be on her terms, not as someone's discarded property. "I am ready," she said, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. Whatever beast awaited her in the shadows, Anna was determined to survive. The beast's hand was massive, each claw catching the flickering candlelight as it extended toward Anna Silva. She could see dark fur covering the muscled forearm, leading to fingers that ended in points sharp enough to tear flesh. "Turn around," the creature commanded, its voice a rumble that seemed to vibrate through the floorboards. Anna forced herself to obey, though every instinct screamed for her to flee. She turned slowly, her borrowed midnight gown whispering against the polished floor. Her eyes traveled upward, taking in the massive form before her. The beast stood nearly 8 feet tall, its body a twisted amalgamation of wolf and man. Broad shoulders hunched forward as if carrying an invisible burden. Its face was elongated, with a pronounced muzzle and teeth that gleamed dangerously when it spoke. Yet what caught Anna's attention most were the eyes, golden, like the betas, but filled with something the enforcer's eyes lacked: pain, intelligence, and unmistakable rage. "Were you cursed?" The question slipped from her lips before she could stop herself. The beast recoiled as if she had struck it, a growl rising from its chest. "You dare to question me?" Its claws flexed, and Anna braced herself for violence. Instead of cowering, Anna found her voice. "I know many tales of curses," she said softly. "Of princes transformed into beasts, of men whose souls were trapped in monstrous forms." The creature stilled, its breathing heavy but controlled. "Tales? You know tales?" Anna nodded, remembering Louisa's words that had saved her life. "Stories have been my companions when no one else would have me." "Tell me one," the beast demanded, settling its massive form into a chair that creaked beneath its weight. And so Anna began, her voice gaining strength as she wove a story of a cursed prince who learned compassion through suffering. She moved to tales of monsters who harbored human hearts, of transformations that revealed, rather than concealed, true natures. With each story, the beast leaned closer, its golden eyes never leaving her face. Hours passed. The candles burned low, wax pooling on silver holders. Anna's throat grew dry, but she continued, drawing from every tale she had ever heard or imagined. When she faltered, the beast would gesture impatiently for her to continue. "More," it would growl, and Anna would find another thread to pull, another story to share. By the time dawn approached, Anna realized something remarkable. She had survived the night not with her body, but with her words. The beast had not touched her except to occasionally refill her goblet with water when her voice grew hoarse. As morning light began to filter through the heavy curtains, the beast rose suddenly. "You will return tomorrow night," it said, not a question, but a command. "Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from." The question hung in the air between them, as tangible as the shadows that clung to the corners of the chamber. "Will you be my wife?" the beast asked, his voice a rumble that seemed to vibrate through Anna's very bones. Anna Silva stared at the monstrous form before her mind racing. The story she had spun throughout the night had created a fragile connection between them. But marriage? Her heart hammered against her ribs. This was not a request she had anticipated. She began, her voice barely above a whisper. Then, drawing upon a courage she didn't know she possessed, Anna offered neither acceptance nor refusal, but something else entirely. "I am held by those who cannot touch me, broken by those who never speak me, and kept by those who never sought me," she said, her voice growing steadier with each word. "Kings command me, but I command fate. What am I?" The beast's golden eyes narrowed, his massive head tilting slightly as he considered her words. The candlelight cast grotesque shadows across his features, yet Anna found herself no longer trembling in his presence. "A riddle?" he finally asked. Genuine confusion evident in his tone. Anna nodded, her fingers nervously smoothing the midnight fabric of her gown. "Yes, if you can solve it, I am yours," she explained, surprised by her own boldness. "If not, let me return to tell you more stories." The beast studied her for what felt like an eternity, his claws clicking against the polished surface of the banquet table. Anna held her breath, wondering if she had pushed too far, if his patience would snap like a dry twig. Instead, a sound emerged from him that took her a moment to recognize. Laughter, rough and unpracticed, but unmistakable. "Clever," he said, and Anna detected something like admiration in his voice. "Very clever, storyteller." He circled the chamber, his massive form moving with surprising grace. "No one has ever challenged me thus," he admitted. "They offer fear or flattery, never games." Anna watched him, realizing that in this moment she held a power she had never possessed before, not through beauty or bloodline, but through her mind alone. "I accept your terms," the beast finally declared. "Return tomorrow night, and the night after, until I solve your riddle, or," he paused, "or until you wish to stay." As dawn approached, Anna was escorted back to the servants' quarters, her mind reeling from the strange pact she had formed. The other girls stared at her with wide, disbelieving eyes. She had survived the night, and so began their ritual, stories exchanged for time, riddles for freedom. Each night, Anna would enter the beast's chamber, adorned in finery that disappeared with the morning light, and each night, the beast would ponder her riddle before requesting another tale. What neither of them yet realized was that with every story shared, the true answer to her riddle was slowly revealing itself between them. When Anna returned to the servants' quarters, her arrival was met with silence that quickly dissolved into fearful whispers. The other girls huddled together, their eyes wide with disbelief that she had survived the night. One servant crossed herself, muttering a prayer under her breath. "You!" A sharp voice cut through the whispers. Dona Clara stood in the doorway, her iron-gray hair pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch her skin. "Come with me, now." The head servant dragged Anna into a small alcove, fingers digging into her arm. "Whatever happened in that room stays in that room," she hissed, amber eyes flashing with warning. "The king's business is not for servant gossip. Understand?" Anna nodded, rubbing her arm when the older woman finally released her. Sleep came in fitful bursts, her mind replaying the beast's voice, his claws, the strange connection they'd formed through her stories. The following day, a young maid appeared at midday, instructing Anna to follow her. They climbed a winding staircase to a part of the castle Anna hadn't seen before, a wing where sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating marble floors that gleamed like water. The maid stopped before an ornate door, knocking twice before pushing it open. "The girl, Majestad," she announced, then stepped aside. Anna entered a sunlit chamber where Rey Rafael Costa stood by the window. In daylight, his beauty was startling, almost painful to look at. His features were too perfect, too sharp, as if carved from stone by a master sculptor. The Beta de Rey stood nearby, his towering form casting a long shadow across the floor. A silent maid waited in the corner, eyes downcast. "Approach," Raphael commanded, his voice lacking the monstrous quality of the beast, but carrying the same authority. Anna obeyed, keeping her gaze lowered as she'd been taught. "You spent the night with my guest," the king said, circling her slowly. "Tell me what transpired." "I told him stories, Majestad," Anna answered softly. "Stories?" His eyebrow arched. "Nothing more?" "No, Majestad." Raphael studied her face, searching for lies. "And what did you think of this creature?" Anna hesitated, weighing her words carefully. "I believe all beings deserve respect, Majestad, even those who appear fearsome." A sneer twisted the king's perfect lips, but something flickered in his eyes, a brief spark of curiosity, perhaps even surprise. "Such noble sentiments from a village girl," he said coldly. "How unexpected." The beta shifted uncomfortably, exchanging a glance with his king. "Remove the gown and jewels," Raphael ordered suddenly. "They belong to the crown." Anna complied, her humility a carefully constructed mask, hiding the intelligence that assessed every word, every reaction. "Remember," the king warned as she was dismissed, "speak nothing of what you've seen. The beast is not for common knowledge." Anna bowed deeply, concealing both her fear and her growing anger. "As you command, Majestade." Raphael Costa stripped the midnight gown from Anna's shoulders, his fingers cold against her skin. The diamond collar was next, removed with practiced efficiency. His golden eyes held a warning as clear as his words. "Never speak of what happens in those chambers, not to anyone." The king's voice was low, almost a growl. "The beast is not your concern beyond your duty to entertain him." Anna Silva bowed her head, keeping her gaze fixed on the polished floor. She swallowed the anger rising in her throat, masking her fear with practiced submission. "As you command, Majestade," she whispered, though inside her mind raced with questions. The connection between the king and the beast seemed impossibly tangled, yet she dared not ask. That night, she returned to the massive oak door leading to the beast's chambers. The guard stationed outside refused to meet her eyes, his face pale with fear of what or who waited within. She noticed his hand trembling slightly as he pushed the door open. Days melted into weeks. Anna's life split into two distinct worlds. By day, she was just another servant, scrubbing endless stone floors until her knees ached and her hands cracked from harsh soap and cold water. Doña Clara watched her with suspicious eyes, assigning her the most grueling tasks, as if testing her limits. By night, Anna transformed. She would enter the beast's chambers wearing gowns more beautiful than anything she had ever imagined. Emerald silk one evening, crimson velvet the next. Each night, she spun new tales, watching the beast's golden eyes soften as her stories unfolded. The other servants kept their distance, whispering when they thought she couldn't hear. "She's cursed," one kitchen girl murmured, making a sign against evil. "No one survives the beast's chambers night after night." "Perhaps she's not human either," another suggested. "Have you noticed she never shifts? Not even at the full moon?" Anna pretended not to hear, carrying her water bucket with dignity despite her aching arms. Their fear created a barrier around her. She was untouchable, different, dangerous by association. Yet as the weeks passed, Anna found unexpected solace in her nightly duties. The beast never harmed her, never demanded anything beyond her stories. In his chambers, her words held power. When she spoke, he listened with genuine interest, something no one in her life had ever done before. For Anna, those nights became a sanctuary. In the beast's presence, she wasn't defined by her barren womb or absent wolf. She was valued for her mind, her imagination, her voice. In the strangest of circumstances, she had found the one place where her words became magic, the only magic left to her in a world that had taken everything else. After a month of nightly storytelling, Anna found herself reaching the end of her borrowed tales. The familiar stories from her childhood, of princesses in towers and wolves in forests, no longer flowed as easily from her lips. She sat across from the beast, her fingers nervously tracing the intricate embroidery of her emerald gown. "I've told you all the stories I know," Ana Silva admitted softly. "Perhaps I could tell you one of mine instead?" The beast's massive form shifted in the shadows, his golden eyes reflecting the candlelight. "Your own stories." His voice, though still deep and rumbling, had lost much of its initial menace. Ana nodded, gathering her courage. That night, she wove a tale about a girl who could speak to birds, but was feared by her village. The beast listened intently, occasionally interrupting with questions that surprised her with their insight. "Why would your heroine forgive those who shunned her?" he asked, claws tapping thoughtfully against the arm of his chair. "Would you not have her seek vengeance?" "Not all strength comes from retribution," Ana replied. "Sometimes there's more power in choosing compassion." The beast leaned forward. "But the village elder, his cruelty deserves punishment." Their debate continued late into the night, the beast challenging her character's motivations, questioning plot turns, pushing her to dig deeper into the story's heart. Ana found herself defending choices she hadn't realized she'd made, discovering layers to her own tale she hadn't consciously crafted. As they talked, a startling realization washed over her. The armor she wore wasn't just physical, the plain servant's clothes by day, luxurious gowns by night. She had built emotional fortifications, indifference to her father Pedro's rejection, resignation to being offered up like damaged goods, acceptance of her supposed worthlessness. These defenses had become so familiar, she no longer recognized them as choices. "You're quiet suddenly," the beast observed, his voice gentler than she had ever heard it. "I was thinking about armor," Ana said, "the kind we wear inside." The beast's eyes, those terrifying golden orbs that had once made her tremble, regarded her with unexpected tenderness. "Tell me about your armor, storyteller." Ana hesitated, then spoke of her father's words that day the beta had come, of 5 childless years with a mate who eventually cast her aside, of being valued only for what her body could not provide. The beast listened without interruption, his massive form perfectly still, except for the slow rise and fall of his breathing. When she finished, he didn't offer platitudes or pity. Instead, he asked, "Will you tell me another of your stories tomorrow?" For the first time since entering the castle, Ana smiled without reservation. "Yes," she promised, "I will." The beast's laughter echoed through the chamber, a sound Ana Silva had once found terrifying but now recognized as genuine mirth. Their nightly conversations had evolved from formal storytelling to spirited debates that stretched until the candles burned low. Ana found herself eagerly anticipating these exchanges, her mind constantly collecting observations and questions to share with him. "You argue like someone who has read many books," the beast remarked one evening, his massive form silhouetted against the firelight. "I've only heard stories," Ana admitted. "My father believed spending money on books for a daughter, especially one who couldn't bear children, was wasteful." The beast's golden eyes narrowed, and Ana worried she had offended him. Instead, he rose from his chair, extending one clawed hand toward her. "Come with me." Ana hesitated only briefly before placing her fingers in his palm. His touch was surprisingly gentle, as he led her across the room to what appeared to be a solid wall. With a careful push against a hidden panel, a narrow doorway appeared. "Watch your step," he cautioned, as they entered a winding stone passage lit by a single candle he carried. The passage opened into a small, circular room lined with shelves. Books, dozens of them, filled every available space. A writing desk stood beneath a narrow window, complete with parchment, quills, and pots of ink. "You mentioned your father wouldn't buy you books," the beast said awkwardly, his massive form suddenly seeming too large for the intimate space. "Now you can write your own stories." Ana stood speechless, tears welling in her eyes. She ran her fingers along the leather-bound spines, hardly daring to believe they were real. "No one has ever," she began, her voice catching. No one has ever valued my words before." The beast shifted uncomfortably. "Words have power," he said simply. "Yours especially." From that night forward, Anna's days transformed. Dona Clara noticed her distraction during chores, but seemed relieved that the king's special guest remained satisfied. Between her duties, Anna slipped away to the hidden library, devouring volumes of poetry, philosophy, and history. Their evening conversations grew richer, filled with references to ancient thinkers and debates about the nature of humanity. The beast proved to be surprisingly well-read, challenging her interpretations and offering perspectives that spanned centuries. "Do you believe in redemption?" Anna asked one night, curled in her usual chair. The beast considered this, his massive claws tapping thoughtfully against the armrest. "I believe in transformation," he finally answered. "Whether that constitutes redemption depends on what comes after." Anna wrote furiously each day, filling pages with her thoughts and original tales. For the first time in her life, someone saw value in her mind rather than her womb. In the quiet sanctuary of books and conversation, hope bloomed between them, fragile but undeniable. The candlelight flickered across the parchment as Ana Silva's quill scratched against the surface. Her stories had evolved over the weeks, from borrowed fairy tales to deeply personal narratives that revealed her soul piece by piece. Tonight, her fingers trembled slightly as she wrote about a young woman deemed worthless by her village, abandoned for her inability to bear children, who discovered purpose in the worlds she created with her words. When she finished reading, Anna looked up nervously. The beast sat motionless in his massive chair, golden eyes reflecting the dancing flames. His claws gripped the armrests, leaving fresh marks in the wood. For several heartbeats, he remained silent, and Anna feared she had revealed too much of herself. "Those who rejected her were fools," he finally growled, his voice rumbling through the chamber. "A mind that creates worlds is worth more than a wolf's strength." Anna's breath caught in her throat. No one had ever defended her values so fiercely. Not her father, who had traded her away. Not the village that had whispered behind her back. Not even the mate who had returned her like damaged goods. "Do you truly believe that?" she whispered, unable to hide the vulnerability in her voice. The beast leaned forward, his massive form casting shadows across the room. "I have lived centuries, seen empires rise and fall. Strength fades, beauty withers. But stories," he gestured toward her writings, careful not to tear the pages with his claws. "Stories endure. They transform hearts and minds long after their creators are gone." Anna felt something warm unfurl within her chest, a sensation so foreign she almost didn't recognize it as happiness. She studied the creature before her, this being others called monstrous, and saw beyond his fearsome exterior to the thoughtful soul beneath. "In my village," she admitted quietly, "they measured a woman's worth by the strength of her wolf and the children she could bear. I had neither." "Then your village was blind," the beast replied. "They failed to see the treasure before them." Anna's eyes stung with unshed tears. As she gathered her papers, their fingers brushed briefly. She didn't flinch away as she once might have. Instead, she found herself lingering in his presence, reluctant for their evening to end. Walking back to her quarters that night, Anna realized with startling clarity that she was falling in love, not with the beast's fearsome form or his power, but with his mind, his respect for her words, and the gentle soul she had discovered beneath layers of fur and claw. The revelation both terrified and exhilarated her. For how could she love a creature she was meant to fear? "Will you be my wife?" The beast's question hung in the air between them, his massive form silhouetted against the firelight. It was the third time he had asked, his voice gentler than one might expect from such a fearsome creature. Ana Silva's heart fluttered in her chest, but she responded as she always did, I am held by those who cannot touch me, broken by those who never speak me, and kept by those who never sought me. Kings command me, but I command fate. What am I? She watched his golden eyes narrow in concentration, claws tapping thoughtfully against the armrest of his chair. The beast never pressed her for an answer, never grew angry at her evasion. Instead, he respected her boundaries, a kindness Anna had rarely experienced before coming to the castle. One day, I hope to solve your riddle, he said, his monstrous features softening. Until then, I cherish our evenings together. As weeks passed, Anna found herself lingering longer in his chambers each night. Their conversations flowed from tales of ancient heroes to philosophical debates about the nature of humanity and monstrosity. The beast listened with an attentiveness that made her feel truly seen for the first time in her life. Your father was a fool to cast you aside, he told her one evening, after she shared a particularly painful memory. A woman's worth isn't measured by the children she bears. The words touched something deep within Anna, a wound that had never properly healed. Her eyes welled with tears, she quickly blinked away. The following morning, Donna Clara appeared at the servants' quarters, her stern face betraying no emotion. "Gather your things," the head servant commanded. "You're being relocated." Fear gripped Anna's heart. Was she being sent away? Had she displeased the beast? Instead, she was led to a small but elegant chamber in the east wing of the castle. Sunlight streamed through leaded glass windows, illuminating a writing desk stocked with parchment, quills, and pots of ink in various colors. "The king's guest requests that you write your stories during the day," Donna Clara explained, her tone suggesting she found the arrangement peculiar. "You'll continue your evening visits, but you're relieved of other duties." For the first time since being taken from her village, Anna felt something like freedom. Each morning, she wrote feverishly, creating worlds where women were valued for their minds rather than their wombs. Each evening, she read her creations to the beast, whose thoughtful critiques helped her refine her craft. The other servants kept their distance, whispering that she was bewitched. Perhaps she was, Anna thought, but not by dark magic, rather by the unexpected gift of having her words truly valued. Anna clutched her parchment to her chest, heart thundering as she hurried through the castle's shadowy corridors before dawn. The words she had written, her confession of love for the beast, felt both terrifying and liberating. For months, she had denied her feelings, but the truth could no longer be contained. She loved him, not despite his monstrous form, but because of the soul she had discovered beneath it. The massive oak door to his chambers stood ajar, unusual for this hour. Anna hesitated, then slipped inside. The room was bathed in the first pale light of morning, streaming through tall windows. She moved toward the bed, where the beast always rested, but froze at the threshold. Golden rays touched the sleeping form, and before her eyes, the beast's body began to convulse. His massive claws retracted, fur receded into skin, and the monstrous face contorted in silent agony. Anna's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp as the transformation completed. Where the beast had been, now lay Rey Rafael Costa, his beautiful face peaceful in sleep, his powerful body unmarked by any trace of the creature she had come to love. "You weren't supposed to see this," Rafael whispered, his eyes fluttering open. He sat up slowly, the sheet falling to reveal his human torso. Gone was the rumbling growl, replaced by the cultured voice she had heard in the throne room months ago. You're him," Anna stammered, the parchment slipping from her fingers. All this time, Raphael's eyes, the same golden hue as the beast's, but now set in his perfect human face, darkened with pain. "Every night I transform, cursed to become what you see in darkness. By day I wear this face, the one my kingdom knows." "Why didn't you tell me?" Anna asked, stepping back as understanding washed over her. "The curse can only be broken by love stronger than that born for a king," Raphael explained, his voice hollow. "You had to love the beast, not the man who wears a crown." He rose, magnificent even in his vulnerability, and approached her. "But now you know. How could you possibly love the beast, knowing he shares my face? You would always see the king beneath the monster." Anna's mind reeled. The king and the beast, the same person. The gentle creature who valued her stories, who gave her books and freedom, was also the feared ruler who had allowed her to be traded like property. "I came to tell you I loved you," she whispered. "The beast. But now you see the truth," Raphael said, his beautiful face hardening. "And that changes everything." By afternoon, Ana Silva found herself standing at the castle gates, a small sack of belongings in her trembling hands. The guards avoided her gaze as they escorted her out, no longer the king's storyteller, just another discarded servant. Raphael's words echoed in her mind. "You weren't supposed to know." As the massive wooden doors closed behind her, Anna realized she had lost not one love, but two: the beast who cherished her stories and the king who couldn't bear to be loved for his broken parts. A year passed in a small cottage on the outskirts of the capital, provided by the royal treasury, a gilded exile. The locals whispered as she passed, "There goes the king's woman," their voices a mixture of awe and pity. Their kindness was polite but distant, as if her proximity to power had marked her as something other than human. Each night, Anna wrote by candlelight, filling pages with tales of cursed kings and love that transcended form. But without her beast's challenging questions or thoughtful debates, the stories felt hollow. She would pause, quill suspended, waiting for a comment that never came. The silence was deafening. When spring arrived, so did the news that traveled through every tavern and marketplace. Rey Rafael Costa would marry Princess Elena from the Northern Territories, a powerful shifter whose bloodline would strengthen the kingdom. The wedding would be public, a rare display meant to unite the people. "Will you attend?" asked her elderly neighbor, who brought bread each morning. "I must," Anna replied simply, not to plead or beg, but to see him one final time, to close this chapter of her life with her own eyes. On the wedding day, the town square transformed into a spectacle of color and light. Banners bearing the royal crest fluttered in the breeze, and flowers carpeted the cobblestones. Anna wore her plainest dress, her hair covered with a simple scarf. She slipped through the crowd, another anonymous face among hundreds. From her position near the back, she could just make out Raphael standing at the ceremonial altar. Even from a distance, she could see the weariness in his posture, the rigid set of his shoulders. The beast had shown more emotion than this perfect, beautiful king who stood waiting for his bride. Anna pressed her hand against her chest, feeling the folded page hidden there, her final story, written for herself alone, a tale of a woman who had loved a monster and a king and found herself in the process. As trumpets announced the arrival of the princess, Anna's heart grew heavy with finality. She had come to witness the end, never imagining there might still be a story left to tell. Anna slipped through the crowd gathered in the town square, her heart pounding against her ribs. The royal wedding preparations transformed the normally modest space into a spectacle of wealth and power. Banners bearing Rafael Costa's royal crest fluttered in the breeze as nobles and commoners alike jostled for the best view. She kept her head down, not wanting to be recognized as a mujer do rey, as the villagers called her. From her position near the back, Anna could see Raphael standing tall and regal at the altar, his face a perfect mask of composure. The princess beside him was beautiful, her wolf spirit evident in her graceful movements. But something felt wrong. Anna's storyteller's eye, trained to notice details, caught glimpses of strangers moving through the crowd with unusual purpose. Their hands kept returning to their sides, checking concealed weapons beneath their festive clothes. "They're going to kill him," she whispered, her blood turning cold. The ceremony began with a flourish of trumpets. Anna pushed forward through the crowd, desperately trying to reach the front. The first arrow flew just as she broke through the final row of onlookers. Raphael's reflexes were lightning fast. He dodged, then shifted partially, his nails extending into claws as he roared commands to his guards. Chaos erupted. The beta charged forward, tackling two assassins, while townspeople screamed and scattered. Raphael fought with the deadly grace of an alpha, but he couldn't watch every direction at once. Anna saw the archer on the rooftop, bow drawn and aimed directly at the king's heart. Without thinking, she lunged forward. Time seemed to slow as she threw herself into the path of the arrow. The impact knocked the breath from her lungs, and she crumpled to the ground. Through dimming vision, she saw Raphael's face transform from rage to horror as he rushed to her side. The setting sun cast long shadows across the square. As Raphael cradled her bleeding form, his body began to change. Before the eyes of his entire kingdom, he transformed into the beast, massive, terrifying, and desperate to save the woman he loved. "Anna," the beast growled, his voice breaking with anguish. She reached up with trembling fingers to touch his monstrous face. "Beast or king, I love you," she whispered. A blinding light enveloped them both. When it faded, Raphael knelt before her, whole and unchanged despite the setting sun. The curse was broken. The arrow that had struck Anna had somehow missed any vital organs, and as Raphael gathered her into his arms, their eyes met in perfect understanding. The kingdom had witnessed everything: their king's secret, his transformation, and the love that had saved them both. 1 year had passed since the curse was broken, and the kingdom flourished under new rule. The grand ballroom of the castle, once reserved only for nobility, now hosted both humans and shifters dancing together beneath crystal chandeliers. Queen Anna Silva stood at the edge of the celebration, her fingers lightly touching the diamond collar at her throat. No longer a symbol of ownership, but worn by choice, a reminder of how far they had come. Rafael Costa moved through the crowd, stopping to speak with former servants who had returned from exile. His smile, once rare, now came easily as he greeted each person by name. Anna watched her husband with pride. The feared Alpha King had transformed into a beloved ruler who governed with compassion rather than terror. "Your stories changed everything," whispered Dona Clara, appearing beside Anna. The woman's iron-gray hair was styled elegantly now, her wolf-amber eyes softer than Anna had ever seen them. Who would have thought a girl without a wolf spirit would sail us all? The castle walls, once imposing barriers, had become permeable boundaries. The old hierarchies that had kept shifters above humans, royalty above commoners, had crumbled. In their place grew something new, a society where value came not from bloodlines or breeding potential, but from character and contribution. 3 months after their wedding, Anna woke one morning to an unfamiliar sensation. A flutter, delicate as a butterfly's wing, stirred within her womb. The royal healers were summoned, their expressions shifting from confusion to wonder as they confirmed what should have been impossible for her barren body. "How?" Anna asked, tears streaming down her face as Raphael held her hand. Her husband's eyes, beautiful and human yet still carrying that ancient feral wisdom, met hers. "Do you remember your riddle? The one you gave me night after night?" Anna nodded, recalling the words that had kept her safe during those first frightening encounters. Raphael's voice was gentle as he finally offered the answer: a promise. His fingers intertwined with hers. "You asked what is held by those who cannot touch, broken by those who never speak, kept by those who never sought, commanded by kings yet commanding fate. It's a promise, and our love was the promise that broke the curse." Their love, born in darkness and nurtured through stories, had healed them both in ways neither could have imagined. Now Anna and Raphael ruled side by side, a king and queen who had chosen each other deliberately, not despite their scars, but because those very wounds had taught them to see beyond appearances to the truth that lay beneath. In the nursery being prepared beside their chambers, Anna had begun writing a new story, one that would teach their child that true power came not from dominance, but from understanding.